Good day, folks. This is Bob in this tumultuous world. You wake up every day and, brand new news and, craps hit the fan and, what happens when crap hits the fan or shit hits the fan? It's just blowing all over the place and everybody's got muck on them, right? What you're seeing is really interesting conversations happening everywhere. Besides the locker room bravado about how tell the world 2 hours before that, basically that you're going to bomb a target. Then you claim that this was not some secret war plan that was leaked by mistake, right? It's amazing, right? You have serious pushback from Canada, as you can see the conversation that finally Trump was forced to have with Mike Carney, and happy to say that it was a good conversation because Canada said it, right, that this relationship is never going to go back to being normal. And that's true. Canada has woken up, right? And the stuff it's done, F-35 deal renegotiated or thinking about it, they've signed up with Australia to put up a radar system in the Arctic for the protection. And he's very clear about his first trip to Europe to meet Macron and Starmer and the King, right? And you're seeing that, and you're seeing the same thing pushback, silent pushback in Japan, not through duties, but through financial instruments. They dumped $30 billion worth of treasuries last week, and that's pushed up interest rates. So, and it's because it's the third largest debt owner buyer of debt of the United States. What happens if Japan suddenly decides it's not going to buy, right? Greenland, bad reception. There was going to be Usha Vance was going to go up. A lead party was sent to ask every Greenlander who would like to have Usha Vance over for tea, and everybody said no. Nobody wanted a Vance either. So what happened? They all just changed the plan to go to the far extreme. Their what do you call that? Star Wars. American base, and the pushback is severe, right, from Denmark and the Europeans. Europeans also, look at what they're doing, right? They've come up with this huge investment plan. Of course, there's a division between central Europeans who are like, big fans of the United States, are finding it extremely difficult to understand what's going down the pike, right? Poland, Czech and Slovakia have understood the threat of Russia. So has all the Baltic countries understood that, and they know that Ukraine is just a start. And then Ukraine, just let me tell you, anybody who's read the Wikipedia, Ukraine. I mean, we have all our guys, are and saying, "Oh, Russia's got it all back. Russia's got it back." See the map. Russia has a slight sliver of the east, right? The east was anyway part of Russia, right? Whatever it was, right? But also, people don't know that Ukraine was one of the 4 fountainheads of the creation of the USSR in 1914 or 15, right? After those European wars, right? So that's the reason why Putin knows that for him to be an empire, he needs to get all of Ukraine back, right? So Ukraine was, a separate country at the end of the day, right? And you can't really sit here and say that why is Zelensky doing that? Why is he doing that? Why is he putting his country at risk? His country, Western Ukraine, is where all the wealth is. Eastern Ukraine does have some, but Western Ukraine is it, right? And then look at what Putin got. Putin just sells all kinds of stuff, and Trump unfortunately buys it. Black Sea is important to him because that's the only export zone. And his Black Sea fleet has been decimated by sea drones of Ukraine. You remember the frigate, its pride of Russia went down, right? Has anybody forgotten that? And it's become extremely difficult for the Russian fleet to operate. And that's its place where, it's got to get fertilizers out. And that's what he's trying. He's trying to get Trump to get Europe to remove the sanctions, and especially the SWIFT sanctions. And Europe is just not doing that. Starmer is very, very clear about that, right? Canada pushback, Greenland pushback, Europe pushback. Then you have this rah about beating up on the Houthis. Who are they really after? Iran, obviously. Iran comes out and I don't know what it shows. It shows this huge tunnel full of missiles. Where they're going to go, I have no idea. But what's the point of showing that now? I have no idea, right? China is pushing back, but China itself is in huge amounts of trouble. Highest unemployment numbers released yesterday, yesterday, they were 5.8%, and they've been just doubling. I mean, they've doubled from the last couple of months, right? So they are in trouble too. So let's see what we got here, right? We have ex-central banker Mark Carney set to become Canadian PM. He did. And with what the way Canada was treated by Trump and Justin Trudeau. Yesterday's conversation, he called him Prime Minister Carney. Well, that's a big slap. Right? And also what's happened in terms of Tesla, the Canadians have withdrawn what they give, the payback they give for buying electric vehicles. So suddenly nobody's buying Teslas, right? US security blunder reveals Trump top team disparaging European allies. And the kind of talk that they're, it's just led to a situation where the Europeans now have escalated their defense budget, and it made it clear, that none of those orders will be placed with American or Turkish companies. That's a massive blowback, right? Vance land in Greenland as Trump pushes takeover bid didn't go anywhere. The Vance landed at US Space Force outpost at Pitfulk in northwest Greenland. No, it's Pitufk in northwest Ground in -3 degrees Fahrenheit, -19 degrees centigrade. Weather shortly after noon and were greeted by 2 US military personnel and no Danes or Greenlanders. Rebuffed by locals to the point of humiliation amid growing anti-American sentiment across the Atlantic, they had to ditch what was to be a cultural trip to go on a politico-military sortie, during which the VP addressed personnel at the US Space Force outpost at Pitufk. The president is really interested in Arctic security, and as you all know, and it's only going to get bigger over the coming decades. Vance said it was cold as shit here. Nobody told me. Vance said, prompting laughs, adding it was his first visit to the island. Now, just tell me, if the US forces decide to invade Greenland, they're going to die in the cold. Trump threat, Greenland PM slams US interference. Trump must not give concessions to Russia on behalf of Ukraine, says Norwegian minister. So all the Scandinavians are standing up. Greenland sees red as Trump sends Usha to advance American interest. Only purpose of this visit is to demonstrate power over us, says the PM. Any country buying Venezuela oil will face a 25% tariff, says Trump, and that hurts India the most. Greenland set to get new government as Trump's takeover threat looms, and got a change of government, but as anti-Trump as they could be, right? And then you worry about this, right? What the Russians are up to. Chaos as outage shuts Heathrow 1351 flights hit. Day after electrical fire, Heathrow back to full off. Now, what I'm being told that the Russian agents may actually be responsible for that. And that's the track that the investigation has now taken in the United Kingdom. So UK is not going to play ball with the US as far as Russia is concerned, right? Putin floats idea of UN-led government in Ukraine. Kiev is not fuming. Kiev is not sitting back. Right? It's given what it could, but yesterday it launched an all-out assault on Moscow with devastating results, and it's doing that, right? It's doing that, its drones are doing that, and believe me, the war is anything but over. Russia has really just gotten Kursk back, which was Russian territory in the first place, right? And they have no soldiers. Neither does Ukraine, but neither does Russia. Ukraine forces retreat from Kursk as Russia claims further advance. Talking peace to Moscow, Kiev. The Jeddah deal promises a ceasefire but can further erode the transatlantic alliance, and it is doing so, and it's not really enforcing because Zelensky continues to go and meet the European leaders. I mean, there's been 3 meetings already. There's a whole bunch of talk about a sky shield and feet on the ground. Everything is up there, up in the air. US resumes arms supply to Ukraine as Kremlin mulls ceasefire proposal. Now, the reason they had to supply the arms because those guys are saying, we are sitting on all these orders. American companies. If they are not shipped, what are you going to do with it, right? US resumes military aid for Ukraine, also to share intel. Ukraine agrees to a 30-day ceasefire with Russia during talks with senior US officials. And the ceasefire is one-sided, right? It's not going to happen because Putin wants part of the ceasefire is only going to come into it's going to come into force only if the Europeans play ball as far as sanctions are concerned, and SWIFT is one of them, and that's not happening. US pushes Russia to accept its truce plan unconditionally. That did not happen. Ukraine said to lose Kursk, its foothold in Russia, and it doesn't matter. Not really. Ukraine truce talks in Riyadh on starting with critical infra. Again, a whole bunch of BS. Okay. And the other thing, let us talk about the Houthis, right? This whole gung-ho bit, this boiler room play. Obviously, Iran is the target, but Gaza seems to have gone nowhere. I mean, Netanyahu is going after Gaza. He's destroyed his economy essentially. Without the US, that wouldn't be in play. And Muslim nations are also pushing back against Trump's plan as far as Gaza is concerned. As far as the West Bank, Gaza, the Muslim nations adopt an alternative to Trump's plan of taking over Gaza. Well, they're going to do, right? Well, all that's happening, right? You might be seeing the stock market, the numbers on deficit. The problem, though, is the core pillars. I mean, even though the market may have gone back to a little bit during the week, but then it came back down again the last 2 days, is the fundamentals of the economy that technically should be driving the stock market are extremely weak. Okay, and you see that here. Core sector growth slows to 5 months low in Feb. Crude, nat gas output slips. And this is another important point. Bank borrows at 9%, lends at 8.5%. Kotak flags risk in lending business model. Then what other model do they have? That's the only thing they're there for, right? Current account deficit widens to 11.5 billion in quarter. This small article. Small article. Infrastructure growth slips to 5 months. Small article, right? FY25, a golden year, just not for Dalal Sleep. So look at this whole year went by, and there was only 5% return in your stocks, right? Your SIPs, your stocks. And that's way below the inflation. So did you really make money? The stock market, folks, has all become about daily gamblers and daily traders. Okay. Feb manufacturing PMI slips on slowdown in sales growth. Auto retail sales fall 7% in Feb. India cotton imports shoot up as farmers battle low yields and prices. Cotton, this is a big thing that's coming out of the US now, right? Bank credit growth slows but continues to outstrip deposits. Bad news again. Nobody's investing in banks. ESIC looks to invest in stock market, awaits them. Now this is the dangerous, like the 401k. The dangerous move by all the agencies where the poor rely on. ESIC funds, LIC, all are being diverted to the stock market. RBI VRR auction C muted response on easing of liquidity. And then Somnath Mukherjee writes, blood on the street, not yet. Trump FPIs are sideshows and ongoing market corrections. The fault lies a bit in our stars, a lot in us. Over a longer time frame, the real limits to equity market performance isn't blood on the poses or lack of it today, but a hard ceiling on structural growth. In short, expectations, as long as investors keep their expectations realistic and investing periods long enough, search for blood is not compulsory. Well, the problem is just that, structural growth. Jobs rising, but salaries not keeping pace with inflation. So what good are those jobs? But anyway, I think that very fact that somebody's saying jobs rising and because it's not got any, it's just a headline. Fraud charges, court orders FIR against ex-SEBI chief, 5 others. And then it says court orders FIR against ex-SEBI chief, 5 others. This is way back, but why I'm bringing this up is why the FPIs have lost confidence in India is essentially because of our regulatory authorities. Because here again, the FIR went nowhere. Private sector activity slows in March on tardy service show. Okay. PSB is bearing good deal of credit card bad debt. Okay. High provisioning margin strain reflects in private banks Q3 shows. Now, banks are in trouble, and I've heard this, right? Now, let us see what's India up with the United States. Like, we are up there. Right? We are the only ones who have not pushed back. We have kept quiet. Every day something comes out, trade deal almost there, trade deal almost there, trade deal almost there. What it tells me is trade deal is nowhere in sight, because the reality in the trade deal, the two big elephants are your agriculture, and the second is IPR. Right? Both of these are something the United States wants, and both of these things we have a problem. We say duties won't hurt us. Duties will definitely hurt our pharmaceutical sector, because if they go up, generics get more expensive. Branded medicines from the United States, then the gap is small. Who would buy generic, right? Secondly, all these threats, what's happening is India is going to end up being a dumping ground. The United States now is facing duties on agricultural products in the US, in China, especially soya and corn. Where do you think that's going to get dumped if that opens up in India? To India. Similarly, China is facing duties on its steel, etc., etc., in the United States. Where do you think that's going to go? Again, India. India is in the weakest spot at this point of time to fight back. The weakest. Okay. Echo the leader in DC, as Seema Sirohi writes, and she makes a point. She says, similarly, Christopher Landau, slated to be Deputy Secretary of State, told senators the US should work with Quad and ASEAN countries because they have an interest in countering China. He noted that the first meeting at the State Department after Trump took office was with the Quad foreign ministers. All good reminders, but Trump is as likely to ask Quad who as not when the time comes. So work for the best, but be prepared for the worst. And then we are looking for this visit, hoping this is going to give us manna from heaven. US VP Vance, Second Lady Usha may visit India. Vance likely to visit in March. But the United States is critical for India. Unfortunately, it's because of this. We are now seeing a 63,000 crore order put for light helicopters. Engines still going to come from overseas, right? And look at this. GE delivers first of the 99 F404 engines for LCA Mk1A aircraft. And these deliveries are, I'm not even sure how we are going to be able to keep up with the deliveries required or promised by HAL when we know the numbers of engines coming in, right? Transactional dimension will define India-US ties. He says, to be sure, there are many in Washington, D.C. cloaked in blue, red and something in between that support what they see as a hardening stance on India. You had it too easy under Biden is how a friend of India put it to me. That this was not the case, and that the age-old argument on and around American altruism towards India is empirically misplaced, no longer matters to those in the seats of power, and to those out of power, this is the reality that India has to contend with. So we did get a free pass under Biden. As the joint statement puts it, a results-driven agenda with initial outcomes this year is central to demonstrate the level of trust for a mutually beneficial partnership. This should be taken at face value. Whether or not the trade-offs are worth it is of course a call that the Indian political establishment will need to determine. India not involved in any BRICS effort to weaken dollar, says EM. So look at it. We are already out there with folded hands. And look at this. US defense ties. India needs to keep its eyes open. Air Marshal Manmohan Badal. See, I was always the one for India-US close ties. Now, I'm kind of scared whether this will happen or not. Right? Looking ahead. This brings us back to the theme of this article. Are we heading the correct way as we look to the US for our strategic armament needs? The answer, surprisingly, actually lies with Washington on whether the US wants a true partnership, in which case it has to make India politically indispensable to itself by imbuing a special friendly slant in our relations. On India's part, New Delhi must ensure that its decisions ensure its interests against any US policy reversal in the geopolitical environment that it is placed in. Even as India imports vitally needed aircraft and other equipment, its eyes need to be wide open to avoid a dependency that would negatively affect its strategic autonomy. But it has. India-US trade talks to enter extra time, which means nothing has happened. US won't club India with China, Canada on tariffs. Trump is more open on trade, tech war. So Jay Shankar is out there giving us massive BS. Tariffs, market access for agricultural goods on agenda as US trade delegation visits India. This is the reality, Mr. Jay Shankar, and all you people, right? IP violations by India now on Trump's trade policy agenda. This is the real McCoy. India US interested in trade talks, but it's premature to share details, changing the rules of the game. This is important. Guess what? China behaved as most nations might when armed with the power. It used the centrality it had acquired to hold global supply chains hostage. It used the moment of vulnerability to push its territorial claims vis-a-vis its neighbors, India and all the rest. It used the moment to expand market access in global south and to project itself not fully accurately as it turned out as the calm and competent power that could withstand the pandemic better than developed Western democracies. The international trading regime is undergoing a process of slow burial with bilateral trade deals and regional trading arrangements replacing it. The increasingly erratic nature of America under Trump with its own tariffs obsession will only fragment global geoeconomic further. While this may lead to increasing costs for China in the short term as tariffs go up, it may well lead to even greater dependence on China in the longer term as the rest of the world begins thinking of a world where America no longer upholds the norms of global trade and economic openness. Customs duty not due to US tariffs, that's all right. Have Sitaraman say that. India has already cut tariffs for key nations like Australia, UAE government. India imposes anti-dumping duty on Chinese goods for up to 5 years. Now, this is a good move. India's 23 billion plan to rival China's factories to lapse after it disappointed. The reason is we just don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the people, we don't have the money, we don't have the R&D. That, folks, and our laws are fungible. Okay. China, Japan, South Korea pledged cooperation amid US tariff worries. Now, here's the problem for the United States because between these three, they almost hold for 50% of US debt. Geared for US duties, China calls on nations to open up. Trump team asks Mexico to levy duty on Chinese imports. Silver lining for India if it strikes special deal with the US, says Zakaria. But what kind of special deal will it have? India, EU, FTA to be game changer for our industries, German envoy. Yes, of course, we have to look to Europe. Indo-France naval exercise of Goa focus on anti-submarine warfare. Tavasya, the 4th Kriva-class stealth frigate launched into water, successor to be from Free World, says Dalai Lama. So China is going to end up being a huge problem. And India, China to now focus on people-to-people exchange. I'm not even sure what that means anymore. India, China ties among most important in the world, says envoy. All you have to do is pander to India's, what do we call it? Right? And then we are, all of a sudden we think everything's hunky-dory. But armed forces hold high altitude drill near LAC in Arunachal. China readies policy for rural revitalization. Eye on China, India plans naval drill with 10 African nations. DRDO PSU's private sector should work for defense Atam Nirbharta. Now, we always keep saying that. But where does that go? Because we have this on the other hand. Government signs 2906 crore deal for locally made radars. Mega fighter jet competition could kickstart after key panel suggestion. India inks 248 million deal with Russia for tank engines. Now, what is Atam Nirbharta? I don't know, right? IF chief calls for enhancement of capabilities amid emerging threats. So Air Chief Marshal AP Singh is the only person I know who has the guts to come out and say what is lacking. IF plans to accelerate medium jets procurement. India needs to be an agile and self-reliance in aerospace. Without jet engines, without any of that stuff, how the hell do you do that? The fact that government has formed a committee under the stewardship of the Defense Secretary to look into the capability gap of the IAF only vindicates the belief that we have a problem at hand. Yeah. And as Arun Prakash writes, as Admiral writes, case for investment in science and technology. Weathering the Trumpian world would need India to step up manufacturing and within that defense production. To that end, the focus on R&D needs to be sharper and nobody wants to invest that. Even though you come up with these things, 1 lakh crore fund to stimulate private sector research and development close to approval. What does that really mean, right? Canada, India has intent and capability to interfere in polls. Now, it's going beyond. Canada is making a major play against the United States. And India if it does not get its act back together as far as Canada is concerned, I'm sorry, we're going to miss one big possibility, new opportunity. New Delhi considers restoring High Commissioner to Canada to reset ties. In the UK, India tells the United Kingdom to act firmly against those involved in Jaishankar security breach, but now we need all these guys, right? India-UK ties set to expand and deepen, says Jaishankar, and I think that is absolutely critical. But folks, this is 25 minutes. See, 7 minutes a day, 4 days. If you got a short attention span and you're getting older, make it work, folks. Make it work. But let me tell you this. The shit's going to hit the fan and everybody's going to have some of it on it. And we have a weak economy and hence a weak defense posturing position because a lot of gaps in our supplies. 3 cheers and good luck to us all. 3 cheers and Jai Hind.